All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And
Yeah.
today we're talking about shoulder turn.
Mm.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at some data from the SportsBox AI 3D golf app.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so this is like some really cool tech that a lot of the pros are using these days
Yeah, it's pretty
to
amazing.
really break down their swing and figure out exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of talk about what shoulder turn actually is and how this app measures it?
Sure. So shoulder turn is basically how much you rotate your shoulders during the golf swing.
Okay.
And the SportsBox AI 3D golf app, what's really neat is it can actually measure your shoulder rotation
Okay.
at different points in your swing. So we can look at your shoulder turn at
Huh.
address,
Yeah.
at the top of your backswing at impact, and at the finish.
So it breaks it down into these key stages, and then you can see the data for each point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can get a really good idea of how much your shoulders are turning
Wow, that's incredible.
throughout the swing.
So why is this so important? I mean, why should golfers care about how much their shoulders are turning?
Well, I mean, ultimately, it comes down to power and consistency,
Right.
which I think are two things that all golfers are striving for. And your shoulder turn really is kind of the engine of your swing.
Okay.
It creates this thing called the X factor, which is basically the difference in rotation between your upper and lower body.
I've heard that term before, X factor, but never really understood what it meant.
Yeah, so basically, it's you're turning your shoulders,
Right.
but you're trying to keep your hips
Stable.
stable. Yeah, so you're creating the separation.
Uh-huh.
And that separation is what allows you to generate power.
So it's like winding up a spring.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you coil your upper body against your lower body,
Yeah.
the more potential energy you build up.
Gotcha. So more shoulder turn equals more power.
To a certain extent, yes.
Okay. So there's a limit.
There is a limit.
Yeah.
You don't want to overdo it,
Right.
because too much shoulder turn can actually lead to inconsistencies and even injuries.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. Yeah. Finding that balance between rotation and stability.
Okay, so speaking of how much shoulder turn, what is that sweet spot? Like, what are we talking about in terms of degrees of rotation?
Yeah, so the data from the SportsBox AI 3D golf app is really interesting here.
Yep.
For pro golfers, the average shoulder turn at the top of the backswing is about 92 degrees for men
Okay.
and about 103 degrees for women.
Whoa, wait a minute. Women are turning more than men?
Yeah,
That's surprising.
it is surprising. Yeah, a lot of people think that men would have more shoulder turn because they're typically stronger,
Right.
but women tend to have greater flexibility
Uh-huh.
in their shoulders and spines, so they're actually able to rotate a little bit more.
Wow. So it's not just about muscle, it's about how our bodies are built.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, even though women might not have as much upper body strength, they can still generate a lot of power.
Right, because they have that extra rotation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do we know if we're rotating enough or too much? I mean, obviously, most of us don't have access to this fancy app.
Right.
Is there a way to kind of gauge it ourselves?
Yeah, I mean there are some general guidelines.
Okay.
A good rule of thumb is that the top of your backswing, your shoulders should be turned about 90 degrees to your spine.
Oh, okay. So picture a right angle.
Exactly. Yeah, like the corner of a square.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good visual.
So, you can kind of check yourself in a mirror or have a friend watch you swing.
Makes sense.
And see if you're getting close to that 90-degree mark.
So what about the transition from backswing to downswing? What happens to our shoulders then?
Yeah, so that transition is really important too.
Okay.
The app actually shows that pro golfers tend to add another 2 degrees of stretch to their shoulder turn
Really?
during that transition phase.
So they're actually rotating even more.
Yeah, so they're not just, coiling up in the backswing and then unwinding. They're actually adding a little bit more rotation.
So it's almost like a slingshot effect.
Exactly. Yeah, they're using that extra stretch to really generate more speed.
Wow. This is incredible. I never realized how much nuance there is to shoulder turn.
Yeah, it's a lot more complex than people think.
Yeah, it's not just about winding up and swinging as hard as you can.
No, there's a lot of finesse involved.
Yeah,
And understanding these little details can really make a big difference in your game.
for sure.
So yeah, it's pretty amazing what we can learn from this technology.
Definitely.
And I think it's really going to change the way people approach their golf swings.
Well, I'm already feeling like I need to rethink my entire swing,
Yeah,
but we'll save that for another day.
we'll get there.
But I'm really curious to hear more about how we can actually use this knowledge to improve our game.
Yeah,
So let's dive into that after the break.
sounds good.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the science of shoulder turn, but now I'm wondering, how can we actually use this knowledge to improve our game?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that it's not just about how much you turn your shoulders.
Okay.
It's about how you turn them.
So quality over quantity.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to be thinking about, cranking your shoulders as far as they go.
Right.
It's more about finding that sweet spot where you're maximizing rotation
Okay.
while still maintaining stability.
So stability is key.
Yeah, absolutely. You need a solid foundation.
Right.
If you want to generate power.
Like a rocket launch.
Exactly. Yeah, if your lower body is all over the place,
Yeah.
all that upper body rotation isn't going to do you much good.
It's all going to go to waste.
Yeah, so focus on keeping your lower body quiet and controlled.
Okay.
And then allow your upper body to rotate smoothly around that stable base.
So it's like a separation of the two.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's where core strength comes in.
Ah, yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, a strong core.
That's got to be crucial.
It is, yeah. It's like the anchor of your swing. It allows you to rotate efficiently without losing your balance.
So hit the gym work on that core.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so besides core strength, are there any drills or exercises we can do to specifically improve our shoulder turn?
Yeah, there are a few things you can try.
Go.
One of the simplest ones is to practice swinging with your feet together.
Oh, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it feels a little awkward at first,
Yeah.
but it really forces you to rotate properly.
Right.
And it prevents you from swaying your hips.
Which is a common mistake, I'm guessing.
Yeah, a lot of people sway their hips instead of rotating.
Okay.
And that just robs you of power.
Yeah, makes sense.
Another good drill is to practice swinging with your arms crossed over your chest.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so you're not actually hitting a ball,
Right.
but you're just feeling that rotation in your upper body.
Okay.
And it really helps you engage your core muscles.
It's more about the feeling than the actual swing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about getting that mind-muscle connection.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then, once you've done these drills, you can start incorporating them into your regular swing.
And see if you can translate that feeling.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. And you can always have a friend watch you swing.
Right.
Or even record yourself on your phone.
Get some feedback.
Yeah, just to make sure you're doing it right.
So even without all the fancy tech, we could still work on our shoulder turn.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't need all the bells and whistles.
Okay, good to know.
But I mean, if you do have access to something like the SportsBox AI 3D golf app,
Yeah.
it can definitely be helpful.
I mean, it sounds amazing.
It is, yeah. It's like having a virtual swing coach in your pocket.
Right.
You can see exactly how your swing compares to the pros.
Oh,
Identify your specific areas for improvement.
that's incredible.
Track your progress over time. It's really amazing.
So it's like a personalized roadmap
Exactly.
to a better swing.
Exactly.
Okay, so besides power, are there any other benefits to having a good shoulder turn?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, consistency and accuracy are huge.
Ah. So it's not just about smashing the ball.
No, not at all.
It's about hitting it where you want it to go.
Exactly. Yeah, when your upper and lower body are working in sync,
Uh-huh.
you create a more repeatable swing,
Okay.
which leads to hitting the ball more consistently
Right.
and with greater control.
So it's that sweet spot between power and precision.
Exactly. Yeah, and when you find that sweet spot,
Yeah.
that's when the fun really begins.
That's when you're shooting under par.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So what are some of the common mistakes that people make with their shoulder turn?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is swaying their hips laterally
Okay.
instead of rotating around their spine.
So it's not a side-to-side motion.
No, it's more of a rotational motion,
Got it.
like a spinning top.
Yeah, okay, I can picture that.
And when you sway your hips, it puts a lot of stress on your lower back,
Right.
which can lead to injuries.
Not good.
No. And it also makes your swing less consistent.
So it's bad for your game and your body.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so avoid the sway.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Another common mistake is using their arms and hands to power the swing
Yeah.
instead of letting their shoulder turn do the work.
So they're trying to muscle it.
Yeah, exactly. And that usually leads to weak, inaccurate shots.
Yeah.
And it can also put a lot of stress on your wrists and elbows.
Right, because you're not using the bigger muscles.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so let the shoulders do the work.
Yes, definitely.
All right, so we've talked about the benefits, the mistakes, the drills. I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
But before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to the big picture.
Okay.
What's the most important thing for golfers to remember about shoulder turn?
I would say this shoulder turn is not an isolated movement.
Okay.
It's part of a beautifully synchronized dance
Ooh, I like that.
between your upper body, lower body, and core.
Yeah.
When all these elements are working together in harmony,
Yeah.
that's when you unlock the true potential of your swing.
So it's not just about twisting our shoulders.
No, it's about creating a smooth, fluid motion
Right.
that generates power and control throughout the entire swing.
I love that it's a reminder that golf is more than just hitting a ball.
Yeah, it's an art form.
It's about mastering your body, your mind,
Exactly.
the physics of the game.
It's a beautiful game.
It really is. And speaking of mastering the game, we haven't even talked about how shoulder turn impacts different types of shots.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Drives, irons, chips, putts. I mean, it's got to be different for each one, right?
It is, yeah. Each shot requires a slightly different approach.
Fascinating.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole deep dive on that.
Well, let's save that for another episode.
Sounds good.
But for now, I think we've given our listeners plenty to think about.
Definitely.
So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts. And we're back, still thinking about shoulders and golf swings and everything.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah, it really is. But I know before we kind of went off on that tangent about all the different types of shots, you were about to give us some final words of wisdom about shoulder turn.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about all the science, the biomechanics, the high-tech analysis and all that. But I think the most important thing is just awareness.
Okay.
Now that you understand how important shoulder turn is, just pay attention to it.
Right.
Feel it in your swing experiment on the range,
Yeah.
You might be surprised at what a difference even a small improvement in your rotation can make.
So it's not like we have to completely overhaul our swing overnight.
No, not at all. It's just about making small adjustments over time.
And being aware of what our body's doing.
Exactly.
Okay, so work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
And I guess that's where that personalized analysis from the app could come in handy.
Yeah, for sure. If you have access to it, it could be really helpful.
Yeah, because it gives you that data-driven feedback.
Exactly. Shows you exactly what you need to work on.
So you're not just guessing. You have a specific plan.
Yep.
That's awesome.
But even without the app, you can still make progress.
Yeah.
Just by being mindful of your shoulder turn and experimenting on the range.
So keep learning, keep practicing.
Exactly.
And don't get discouraged if you don't see results immediately.
Yeah. It takes time and patience.
This is a long game.
It is.
All right, any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
Just this, next time you're on the course, don't just go through the motions.
Okay.
Really think about that coil. Think about that rotation.
Yeah.
Think about that connection between your upper and lower body.
So be present in the swing.
Exactly. Be present, feel the swing, and let that awareness guide you.
Man, I'm ready to hit the range right now.
Me too.
Well, thanks again for joining us for this deep dive into shoulder turn.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It really has. And for all of you listening out there, keep swinging, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.